About Agbeko, Fafali, Mawunyo, and Mawusi. Agbeko was a wealthy and successful businessman in his late 40s. He was known for his ruthless tactics and greed, but also for his charm and charisma. Agbeko's brother, who had passed away recently, had left behind a beautiful wife, Fafali, and two lovely daughters, Mawunyo and Mawusi. Fafali was a kind and gentle soul, loved by all who knew her. She had always been a homemaker, taking care of her husband and children with devotion. Mawunyo and Mawusi were bright and ambitious young women, with big dreams and aspirations. Mawunyo was studying to be a doctor, while Mawusi was an aspiring artist. The family had always been close-knit, and Agbeko's brother had been like a father to him. But Agbeko's greed and selfishness had slowly driven a wedge between them. Despite this, Fafali and her daughters had always hoped that Agbeko would change his ways and become a better person. Little did they know, Agbeko's greed would soon lead him to commit a terrible act, one that would change their lives forever. Agbeko's greed and how he took advantage of his brother's passing. After his brother's funeral, Agbeko began to make his move. He started by convincing Fafali to let him handle the estate and properties left behind by his brother. Fafali, trusting her brother-in-law, agreed, thinking he would act in their best interest. But Agbeko had other plans. He started by selling off the family's ancestral home, claiming it was too expensive to maintain. He then took control of the family business, firing employees and selling off assets. He even went so far as to take possession of Fafali's personal belongings, including her jewelry and family heirlooms. Fafali and her daughters were devastated. They had never imagined Agbeko would stoop so low. They tried to reason with him, but he just laughed, telling them they were naive and didn't understand the ways of the world. As Agbeko's greed consumed him, he became more and more ruthless. He manipulated documents, forged signatures, and even bribed officials to get what he wanted. Fafali and her daughters were left with nothing, forced to move into a small hut on the outskirts of the village. The villagers were shocked and outraged by Agbeko's actions. They had always known him to be selfish, but this was a new low. They tried to help Fafali and her daughters, but Agbeko's power and influence made it difficult. Fafali and her daughters were left to pick up the pieces of their shattered lives, wondering how a man they had once called family could be so cruel. Fafali and her daughters' struggles after losing their properties. Fafali and her daughters were heartbroken as they settled into their new life in the small hut. They had gone from living in a beautiful home with plenty of land and resources to struggling to make ends meet. Mawunyo had to drop out of medical school, and Mawusi had to put her art career on hold. Fafali tried to make the best of the situation, but it was tough. She had always been a proud woman, and now she had to rely on the charity of others to survive. She felt like a failure as a mother and wife, unable to provide for her family. Mawunyo and Mawusi tried to be strong for their mother, but they were struggling too. They had to work multiple jobs just to make enough money to eat, and they had to deal with the stigma of being poor. Despite their struggles, the three women remained close and supportive of each other. They continued to hold on to their values and beliefs, and they never lost hope that things would get better. One day, while out searching for firewood, Fafali stumbled upon a small plot of land that was perfect for farming. She had always been a skilled farmer, and she saw this as an opportunity to provide for her family once again. With the help of her daughters, Fafali started a small farm, growing vegetables and fruits that they could sell in the market. It was hard work, but it was worth it. They were finally able to earn a steady income and start rebuilding their lives. As they worked on their farm, Fafali and her daughters realized that they were not just growing crops, they were growing hope. They were proving to themselves and to others that no matter how difficult life gets, with determination and hard work, you can always rise again. Agbeko's wealth and riches grow, but so does his greed. As Fafali and her daughters struggled to make ends meet, Agbeko's wealth and riches continued to grow. He had taken over the family business and expanded it, using his ruthless tactics to eliminate any competition. He had also invested in real estate, buying up land and properties all over the village. Agbeko's mansion was the largest and most opulent in the village, with marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and a private pool. He threw lavish parties, inviting all the wealthy and influential people in the village. He showed off his wealth, flaunting his designer clothes, expensive jewelry, and fancy cars. But despite his wealth, Agbeko was never satisfied. He always wanted more, and he would stop at nothing to get it. He began to exploit his workers, paying them minimum wage and forcing them to work long hours in dangerous conditions. He bribed officials to look the other way, and he used his wealth and influence to silence anyone who dared to speak out against him. As Agbeko's greed grew, so did his isolation. He had few real friends, only sycophants and yes-men who were afraid to tell him the truth. His family was ashamed of him, and they distanced themselves from his actions. But Agbeko didn't care. He was too busy counting his money and admiring his reflection in the mirror. He thought he was above the law, above morality, and above consequences. Little did he know, his greed would soon lead to his downfall. Fafali and her daughters' kindness and generosity despite their hardships. Despite their struggles, Fafali and her daughters never lost their kindness and generosity. They continued to help those in need even when they had little to give. They shared what little food they had, offered shelter to travelers, and provided comfort to those who were sorrowful. Their farm became a beacon of hope in the village, a symbol of resilience and determination. People would come from all around to buy their fresh produce, but also to seek advice and guidance from Fafali and her daughters. They were known for their wisdom, their compassion, and their unwavering optimism. One day, a severe storm hit the village, destroying homes and crops. Fafali and her daughters were among the few who were not affected, and they quickly opened their doors to those who had lost everything. They shared their food, their shelter, and their love, helping their neighbors to rebuild their lives. Agbeko, on the other hand, was nowhere to be found. He was too busy counting his money and admiring his reflection in the mirror to care about the suffering of others. He even refused to help his own family, telling them to get a job and stop begging. But Fafali and her daughters didn't judge him. They continued to pray for him, to hope that one day he would see the error of his ways and change his heart. And they continued to be a source of light and love in the village, a reminder that kindness and generosity can overcome even the greatest of hardships. Agbeko's downfall begins, his wealth starts to disappear. Agbeko's greed and selfishness had finally caught up with him. His wealth began to disappear, his businesses failed, and his properties were repossessed. He had lost everything, and he was left with nothing but the clothes on his back. At first, Agbeko was in denial. He couldn't believe that his wealth and riches had disappeared. He thought it was a temporary setback, that he would soon regain his fortune. But as the days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into months, he realized that his downfall was real. He tried to borrow money from his friends and acquaintances, but no one would lend him a penny. He had burned too many bridges, and no one trusted him anymore. He was left alone, with no one to turn to. As Agbeko's wealth disappeared, so did his pride. He was humbled and broken, forced to confront the consequences of his actions. He realized too late that his greed and selfishness had destroyed everything that truly mattered in his life. Fafali and her daughters, on the other hand, continued to thrive. Their farm was flourishing, and their kindness and generosity had earned them the respect and admiration of the entire village. They had weathered the storm, and they had come out stronger on the other side. Agbeko was forced to swallow his pride and beg Fafali and her daughters for help. He was ashamed and humiliated, but he had no other choice. He asked for their forgiveness, and he promised to change his ways. But had Agbeko truly changed, or was he just trying to manipulate his way back into their lives? Only time would tell. Fafali and her daughter's prosperity grows, their kindness attracts abundance. Fafali and her daughters were hesitant to trust Agbeko at first, but they saw the sincerity in his eyes and decided to give him a chance. They took him in, fed him, and gave him a place to stay. They also taught him how to farm and helped him to rediscover his connection with the land. As Agbeko worked on the farm, he began to realize the value of hard work and the importance of community. He learned to appreciate the simple things in life and to respect the land and its bounty. He also learned to forgive himself and others, and to let go of his greed and selfishness. Fafali and her daughter's kindness and generosity had attracted abundance into their lives. Their farm was thriving, and their crops were the best in the village. They were also blessed with good health, happiness, and a sense of purpose. Agbeko, on the other hand, was transformed by his experience. He had lost his wealth, but he had gained something far more valuable, a sense of belonging, a sense of purpose, and a sense of peace. He had finally found what he had been searching for all his life, true happiness. The villagers, who had once shunned Agbeko, now welcomed him with open arms. They saw the change in him and were impressed by his humility and kindness. Agbeko had finally found his place in the village, and he was grateful for it. Fafali and her daughters had shown Agbeko that kindness and generosity could lead to true prosperity, and that wealth and riches were not the only measures of success. They had shown him that family, community, and a connection with the land were the true keys to happiness. Agbeko's transformation and redemption. Agbeko's transformation was nothing short of miraculous. He had gone from being a greedy, selfish, and ruthless businessman to a kind, compassionate, and humble member of the community. He worked hard on the farm, helped his neighbors, and even started a community project to help the poor and marginalized. Fafali and her daughters were overjoyed to see the change in Agbeko. They had always believed in his potential for good, and now they saw that potential being realized. They welcomed him into their family, and he became like a brother to them. The villagers, who had once feared and avoided Agbeko, now respected and admired him. They saw the good work he was doing, and they benefited from his kindness and generosity. Agbeko had finally found his place in the village, and he was grateful for it. One day, Agbeko decided to use his business skills to help the community. He started a cooperative, where farmers could pool their resources and sell their produce at a fair price. He also started a microfinance program, where people could borrow money at low interest rates to start their own businesses. The cooperative and microfinance program were a huge success, and the village prospered like never before. Agbeko's transformation had brought prosperity and happiness to the community, and he was hailed as a hero. Fafali and her daughters were proud of Agbeko, and they knew that their kindness and generosity had played a big role in his transformation. They had shown him that there was a better way to live, and he had taken it to heart. Agbeko's story spread throughout the land, a testament to the power of kindness, generosity, and redemption. Fafali and her daughters' happiness and fulfillment. Fafali and her daughters were overjoyed to see Agbeko's transformation. They had always believed in his potential for good, and now they saw him using his talents to help others. They were proud of the role they had played in his redemption and were grateful for the positive impact he was having on the community. As they worked together on the farm and in the community, Fafali and her daughters felt a sense of happiness and fulfillment they had never known before. They had found a sense of purpose and meaning in their lives, and they were grateful for the journey that had brought them to this place. Mawunyo and Mawusi were thriving, and their dreams were finally within reach. Mawunyo was studying medicine, and Mawusi was pursuing her passion for art. They were both grateful for the support and encouragement they had received from their mother and Agbeko. Fafali was proud of her daughters and the strong, independent women they were becoming. She knew that they would make a positive impact in the world and was grateful to have been a part of their journey. As they sat on the porch of their farmhouse, watching the sunset, Fafali turned to her daughters and Agbeko and said, "I am so grateful for all of you. You have brought joy and purpose to my life, and I am so proud of the people you have become." Agbeko smiled, knowing that he had finally found his place in the world. "I am grateful for all of you too," he said. "You have shown me the true meaning of kindness, generosity, and redemption. I am honored to be a part of this family." And so, they all lived happily ever after, a testament to the power of love, forgiveness, and redemption.